you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast. On this Monday, January 6th, the Montreal Canadiens were on the road for the most part during the Christmas holidays. They had 4 days off, and then they went into Florida, of course. And as you know, on a Saturday afternoon, they beat the Florida Panthers by a score of 4-0. Dobeš picked up the shutout. The night after that, or late afternoon after that, on the Sunday, they went into Tampa and they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning by a score of 5-2. A couple of days after that, in the afternoon on a Tuesday, they were down by a score of 2-0 to the Vegas Golden Knights, and they beat the Vegas Golden Knights by a score 3-2. And then a couple nights after that, they were in Chicago. They lost to the Blackhawks after having 40 shots. The night after that, they were in Colorado, where everyone thought it was a scheduled loss, and they beat the Colorado Avalanche by a score of 2-1 in a shootout. It was Jakub Dobeš once again, and it was the Canadiens only giving up 23 shots, only limited McKinnon and Rantanen to a point apiece on the power play. And the Canadiens then traveled back to Montreal. So there was a lot of travel going to Chicago, and then from Chicago to Colorado, playing in altitude. And then on the Sunday, spending the day of travel to come back. And then tonight, hosting the Montreal Canadiens, the Vancouver Canucks. And they say that first game back, it catches up with you because of fatigue and the travel, and you're at home and you're running errands. You haven't seen your family. You're making phone calls. You're doing stuff. What a thriller we saw tonight, a game that went back and forth, and what a huge win. This Canadiens team, we said it, I don't know when the turning point was, but at one point here, they started to believe. And they're believing even without Patrick Laine, and they're believing even without David Savard, and they're believing even when they're trailing in a hockey game. And the game isn't over until it's over for the Montreal Canadiens. And what an entertaining game the fans had at the Bell Center tonight. It is the Sick Podcast, and welcome once again. The Montreal Canadiens win in overtime by a score of 5-4. I don't know how many overtime winners Nick Suzuki has had at the Bell Center this year. I think it's 3, but I could be wrong because he scored so many of them. It's unbelievable. The Canadiens score the winner on the power play, and we're going to talk about it with Pierre McGuire, who said at one point, the Canadiens need to get Lane Hutson on the first wave of the power play. He wasn't alone, but he was very, very outspoken about it and said that when they do, you'll see this team will win a lot more hockey games than they were winning before that. And guess what? Lane Hutson tonight was once again the difference in the hockey game. He was the best player for the Montreal Canadiens. JT Miller was pretty good. Thank you very much for the Vancouver Canucks. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by Playground. If you're looking for the ultimate entertainment experience, Playground has it all. Gaming, poker, fine dining, live music, DJs, all with unmatched customer service. Why go anywhere else? Just minutes from downtown Montreal across the Mercier Bridge. Playground, your top destination for fun. Also brought to you in part by Bittt at Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for chilly winter days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. Without further ado, Pierre McGuire joins me. It's time for the Maguire Report.
The Maguire Report. Presented by Vago Italian.
presented by Restaurant Vago, open 23 years, longevity. Not many restaurants open that long, 23 years. I repeat, private dining rooms for any occasions, birthdays, engagements, corporate meetings, plenty of free parking after 6, open Monday to Saturday evenings, lunch Tuesday to Friday, fresh quality ingredients, old world Italian classics, and new Italian. Come see Tommaso, who'll greet you at the door. He's the most popular man in Westmount, and his partner Angelo, who's in the kitchen, would be number 2. What a place. Restaurant Vago, Green Avenue, corner of the Maisonneuve. What a guy. What an analyst. What a coach. What an executive. What a great co-host on the Habs podcast here in the Sick Podcast after Canadiens games. Pierre McGuire, how are you?
I am so good. I'm so excited, Tony. I had so much fun watching that game. You sold it perfectly because that's exactly how the game played out. And the truth of the matter is, I want to know how many fans thought when it was 3-1 Vancouver that Montreal was coming back. Because you could see the coach was getting a little squirrely. You could see some of the players were starting to get a little fatigued. The body language wasn't good. And then when they go ahead in the game and Cole Caulfield takes the not a smart penalty, bad penalty.
Yeah.
And they score right off the first faceoff, which, by the way, Jake Evans won, and they didn't clear the puck.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, boy, this is going to have a bad ending.
Yeah.
But it didn't. And then you talk about real bad penalties. Hoaglander's penalty on Josh Anderson.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I coached Rick Tocchet. I know
Yes.
Rick Tocchet. He may not say anything tonight. That kid's not going to be happy in the film room. I'll tell you that.
That interference penalty, Hoaglander on Josh Anderson, doesn't happen if Lane Hutson doesn't trust his instincts and once again jump into the play to force the issue, to try and create offense. Hoaglander couldn't get a piece of Hutson. Hutson got away from him. Hutson created havoc in the offensive zone all night long, Pierre. And a lot of people are watching and they're saying, you know what, they've been saying for a while now, who knows? Maybe Lane Hutson can be the next Quinn Hughes. Well, one game doesn't make a season or it doesn't make a career, but Lane Hutson was up to the challenge tonight. And he said, you know what, Quinn Hughes, I want to be you. As a matter of fact, I want to be better than you, even though you won the Norris Trophy last year and had 92 points or whatever it was. He was better than Quinn Hughes tonight.
You know, we talked about it on the show a while ago, and I said, look at the stats from when Quinn Hughes came out of University of Michigan and went to Vancouver, and look at all the minuses in the first 2 years. There were a lot of minuses. It was bad, like a minus 50 combined. Then you look at what Lane Hutson does, and you see where Lane Hutson is after 2 years at BU compared to 1 year at Michigan for Quinn Hughes. I'm a huge Quinn Hughes fan. I think he's a tremendous player. I've known the family a long time, but I'll tell you this. Lane Hutson's going to give him everything he can handle and some. Lane Hutson's special. It's not a surprise to me. I'm so glad people are getting to see how great an athlete he is, how great a player he is. He's just going to continue to get better. And you know what, Tony, what's amazing to me?
Yeah.
He was watching the World Junior last night after coming back from Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy loves hockey. That's what you want. Guy Lafleur loved hockey. Superstars that love hockey, they make your team better. They make your team better. It's
unbelievable. A lot of people looked at his size and they questioned his ability to be able to, sustain big NHL forwards. They questioned his ability to play 82 games and wondered if he did play 82 games, at what point he would break down. And listen, they haven't reached the halfway point of the season yet, so we'll have to wait and see. But you just get the feeling that this guy can play 25 minutes a game, 82 games, and play at a very high level, even though it defies, all the laws of physics and all the laws of logic here, because he doesn't have the kind of body type to sustain it. But once again, you talked about it. He loves the game so much. He approaches every game like a game of pond hockey. He's got a huge smile on his face from the second he makes his way onto the ice to the second the game is over. And it seems like he's not fazed by any moment. It seems like, once again, he's just going out there and playing a game of pond hockey. 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points for him tonight. By the way, the same stats for Nick Suzuki. 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Pierre, I got a stat for you. Back on the 20th of December, Lane Hutson was minus 16. Tonight, the 6th of January, he's a +1 tonight. Lane Hutson is now minus 7.
Yeah.
So in his last 8 games, I think he's gone from minus 16 to minus 7. And obviously it's coincided with a lot of Canadiens wins and a lot of Canadiens goals. But that plus minus is moving in the right direction for Lane Hutson.
Oh, it is, and it will continue to do that because when you own the puck, the other team can't score.
Yeah.
And you're so spot on all this breakdown that you're providing for the viewers at home. Here's one thing I'll say about Montreal. They have a lot of heart. They believe in the coaching message. The coach has shown a lot of improvement as a bench manager, as an organizational manager. He's improved a ton.
Yes, sir.
But to me, the biggest thing is the heart of the players. They know Suzuki's a game breaker. They know Caulfield's a game breaker. We're seeing Kirby Dach make a difference now with his size. We're seeing the first power play trying to get to 24 or 25%. We're seeing them be able to go on the road and play in Vegas, play in Colorado, play in Tampa, play in Florida. 4 really good teams and not be intimidated. Tony, that is an amazing sign. It's the patience of a rebuild, and now they're starting to get rewarded. The players, the coaches, the ownership, and the fans.
Yeah, special thanks to Laval Rocket, by the way, for sending me the toque. It's so comfortable that I kept it on while I was watching the game. A little bit cold in the house. I said I need a toque. I decided to leave it on, so it's pretty cool.
Hey, two big wins for them this weekend. Way to go, fellas.
Yeah. Pierre, they said they wanted to be in the mix. Marty St. Louis, and we got to give him credit here because when the Canadiens weren't in the mix, we gave it to Marty, and now that they're in the mix, I think it's only fair that we give some praise to Marty. And like you said, he's becoming a better bench coach with every game. So the way the players are rebuilding and the way they're growing with every game, the same thing goes for the head coach, who was a rookie head coach in the National Hockey League. It was Marty St. Louis who was the first one at the end of the season last year. The Canadiens played a back-to-back versus the Detroit Red Wings, and at the end of the season, the final game, Marty said, the goal next year is to be in the mix. When the golf tournament happened, Jeff Molson said the same thing. Jeff Gordon said the same thing. Kent Hughes said the same thing. Marty St. Louis said the same thing. A month ago, they weren't in the mix. 1 month later, they are. This team has been winning a lot of hockey games in the last month. And Pierre, they believe right now. Like we talked, you said how many people thought the game was over when they were down 3-1. The coach didn't look too happy. The body language went down. Right now, they have an energy to them. They believe, Pierre. They believe.
I'm with it. So one of the things that makes me believe in this team, I see Caden Gooley early in the game saying, I got to get some energy for our guys. I know Caulfield scored, but they needed energy. He steps up on Jonathan Lekkerimäki. It's a huge open ice hit, gets everybody's attention. You see him probably 3 or 4 huge body shots. Jaden Struble, probably Tony played one of his best games of the year, yes. Jaden Struble, because they got Jaden Struble thinking, this is how you need to play. You're not a cute guy. You got to be a messy guy. You got to be hard on the board. You got to be hard on the puck. You got to clear the crease. He was doing that. Another smart thing they did, they got Struble off the right, if you notice, after the first period, and put him over on the left side where he's much better. Jack Guy seems more comfortable playing on the right, even though he's a left-hand shot. So they did a lot of things that were really good, Tony. You're really right. Exciting to see. Little subtle things that matter in a game. Little subtle things.
You're absolutely right. Jaden Struble set the Caden Gooley. You know what? You're setting the tone for the hockey game, and I'm not going to leave you all alone on an island, my friend. I'm going to support you because when you're not on the ice, I'm going to deliver those hits, and we're going to let the Vancouver Canucks know that they're going to pay the price because this is our building. And Pierre, Montreal needs to be a tough place to play. It hasn't been a tough place to play for a while, and tonight's the first game back in a long time because, of course, they were on the road for as long as they were during the Christmas holidays. They need to make Montreal a tough place to play. Tonight, they made it a tough place to play.
And when it's a tough place to play, the fans make it even tougher, and that's the beauty of Montreal.
Yeah.
There's some buildings that are like mausoleums. They're really dead, even though the team provides some entertainment. That doesn't happen in Montreal when the team plays the way they are right now, Tony. It's really exciting to see. And I will just say this to the fans, and I know people don't care about owners.
Yeah.
The only way a rebuild works is if the owner buys in completely. And the Molson family has bought in. They've been supportive. They haven't panicked. They didn't pull the plug. Most rebuilds don't work because halfway through, the owner listens to the media, gets scared about the fans and the ticket buying population, and they pull the plug. This hasn't happened here. And that's why this rebuild, one of the reasons why this rebuild's working.
Pierre, you know what? We're not on Saturday nights, not yet anyway. Knowing Agnello and Sammy, they're going to talk me into that as well. We go 12 months a year here on the Sick Podcast. We go in June, we go in July, we go in August, we go when other people aren't on. But we don't go on Saturdays. And once again, I almost see it coming from a mile away. Because we don't go on Saturdays, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about that big win in Colorado. Yeah. A lot of people looked at it on the schedule and said, okay, you know what? They lost in Chicago. It's the last game of the road trip. They're traveling from Chicago to Colorado. You would have thought the players had every reason to kind of not go at 100%. They battled, they believed, and they won the game in a shootout. Before we get back to this game, talk to me about what you saw in Colorado. I think, Pierre, it's the most impressive win of the season. Why do I think that? Because, once again, last game of the road trip, going up against the top offense in the league, playing a game, 2 games and 2 nights travel included, playing in altitude, playing with what is your number 2 goalie for now, playing without your top power play guy or one of your top power play forwards in Patrick Laine, playing without one of your best shorthanded guys, penalty kill guys in David Savard. I mean, there's so many other things I can add as to why going up against a team that was, I think, 16-0 after having the lead after 2 periods, who had never lost a game in overtime or a shootout, and the Canadiens did that. Dobish standing on his head, making himself unbeatable in the shootout the way he did. Marty St. Louis shaking up the lines and saying, you know what, I'm cutting down my bench and I'm going with the guys who I think are going to give me a chance to win. And one of which was sitting Slafkovsky on the bench, putting Jake Evans with Suzuki and Caulfield, Jake Evans makes a great defensive play prior to Suzuki setting up Caulfield for the tying goal. I thought that was the most impressive win of the season. Tell me what you thought about that win in Colorado and whether or not that, as well as everything else that's happened, can really be a turning point between now and the rest of the season.
Oh, I know everything you said, spot on, ditto on everything. Here's the thing that really impressed me about that game. And I didn't watch it live, Tony. I watched it the next day because I was at a college hockey game watching that. And what I would tell you is this, what impressed me the most, they hung in there at the start. They had a plan to shut down McKinnon. They had a plan to take Taves and McCarr kind of out of the game. They kept a lot of stuff to the outside. They let Dobish see a lot of pucks. He was phenomenal, as you said, in the shootout. What I liked, and you nailed it, you kind of took my thunder. Slafkovsky sits down. They get Jake Evans on there. He's an amazing utility player, makes a great defensive play, great defense leads to better offense, and the puck couldn't be in a better person's hands than Nick Suzuki, and what a pass over to Cole Caulfield to tie that game. And after that happened, watching it again a day later, I'm going, oh, man, these guys are good. Like, they get it. They're listening to their coach. They're paying attention. And we talked about it before this just started. His bench management skills are way better, Tony.
Way better.
He understands his team. He understands the assets that he has. He understands when he needs to sit guys. He knows when he needs to play guys. That's a sign of a coach that's getting it. And I've told you this before, 10 times a year, if you're going to be a playoff team, 10 times a year, your coach has to make enough good decisions 10 times a year where you get points. That's 20 points in the standings. And Marty St. Louis, I would say tonight, is one of those 10s. I would say down in Tampa was one of those 10, and I would say Colorado was one of those 10. So we've got 3 just from this little recent run here, and he's well on his way to making a big difference here.
And you know what? In those wins too, the utilization of his goalies and when to use them, right? Yeah. Jakub Dobish plays in Florida. He picks up a 4-0 win by shutout. Montembeault plays the night after that in Tampa. He wins by a score of 5-2. On short rest, Montembeault plays again versus Vegas and makes 3 huge stops in the last 30 seconds of the hockey game to preserve the 1-goal win. Dobish plays in Colorado and beats the Colorado Avalanche. They come back with Montembeault tonight. I get it. He gave up 4, probably a couple he'd want to have back. But the bottom line is the Montreal Canadiens won the hockey game. And for the first time in a long time, the Montreal Canadiens are officially in a playoff spot. If the season would end tonight, and it won't, and the Canadiens have played 2 more games than the Ottawa Senators, but the Canadiens are right now, as we speak, are holding on to the second and final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. Tampa Bay has 42 points, and the Canadiens have 41. But keep in mind that the Boston Bruins hold on to the third spot in the East. And Pierre, I think the Bruins can be had. They have 45 points. They got 4 points more than the Canadiens, but they have played 2 games more than the Canadiens, and the Canadiens only have 1 win less. The Canadiens win those 2 games in hand. Guess what? All of a sudden, they're not a wild card team. They could be third spot in the Atlantic, in the Eastern Conference, in the Atlantic, that is. So, you know what? I take a look at the teams that are under the Canadiens, Pierre. Pittsburgh, Ottawa. I get it. Ottawa's got 2 games in hand. We'll see what happens there. Columbus, Philadelphia, Detroit, the Rangers, the Islanders, the Sabres. Pierre, the downfall of the Rangers and the resurgence of the Canadiens, the downfall of the Rangers has really opened everything up here in the East.
And don't forget the downfall of the Bruins right now. They've already fired a really good coach who's moved on. When Sacco took over there, everybody thought, the sky's the limit. And all of a sudden, they've lost 4 in a row, and they're in a free fall. The Bruins are in a free fall. And without Hampus Lindholm, they're in trouble. But David Pastrnak, the last 2 games against Toronto and at home against the Islanders the next day, he's played as well as he's ever played. And they still have lost those games. This is not for the Bruins, and I'm not trying to scare their fans because I know we get a lot of Bruins viewers. I'm just telling you right now, they're cratering right now. They need Lindholm back, and they need to make a deal. Their team as it's built right now is not good enough to be one of the upper echelon teams in the Eastern Conference. But you're spot on about Montreal. And Tony, I'm just happy to see the faith of management being rewarded. I'm really happy to see that because I hate it. I've had it happen to me twice where you start a rebuild and halfway through what should be a 4-year rebuild or a 5-year, ownership or somebody says, you know what, not good, we're pulling it. And it drives you crazy. Trust me, it does. Mr. Molson and the family has not panicked, and they've trusted this rebuild, and it's working. It is working.
Pierre, you know me, and you've known me for a long time. I have a lot of opinions, and when you have a lot of opinions, you're going to be wrong a lot too. People that don't have a lot of opinions, they're never wrong. Well, the sky is gray, it's blue, the sky is white, the sky is black. I mean, they change their mind every day. I'm not like that. Danny says, Tony, invite Marty St. Louis on your podcast and apologize to him. Well, that I won't do because I think I was fair, to be honest. Now, some people might disagree, but hold on a second. I was critical of the Canadiens getting blown away and obliterated 5 times in the month of October. I thought the Canadiens were a better team than that. And I think today proves I was right. I was critical of the Canadiens getting obliterated once in November. I was critical of the Canadiens getting obliterated once in December. I was critical of the Canadiens trailing 3-2 in period number 3 versus Pittsburgh and losing by a score of 9-2, where the entire team gave up. I was critical of Marty St. Louis not putting 2 centermen on the ice for key faceoffs. I was critical of Marty St. Louis not having Lane Hutson on the first wave of the power play. I was critical with Marty St. Louis. Maybe where I can apologize is I got pretty upset when Marty didn't show fire. I got pretty upset when Marty wasn't benching guys. I got pretty upset when Marty was protecting guys. And maybe by not benching guys like Kirby Dach, and maybe by protecting guys like Kirby Dach, Marty has won because Kirby Dach's playing better hockey. If I'm guilty of that, I'll apologize. But Pierre, I don't think I was guilty about the other things. When you start this podcast and you tell me that Marty St. Louis is becoming a really good bench boss, you're a very great guy and you're a very diplomatic guy and you got a lot of class, but that's your way of saying that he wasn't as good at bench boss or wasn't making as many good decisions at the start of the season. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pierre.
No, you're spot on. And here, this is not because we work together. I'll just tell you this. Their in-zone coverage wasn't good enough. And I said it on the air, and that's a reflection of coaching. There's only one thing you can teach really solidly is in-zone coverage as a team. You can teach neutral zone, but a lot of times it gets frayed. They weren't defending hard enough from the red line to the blue line. Then they weren't defending hard enough from the top of the circle down to the icing line. And they were getting ripped apart. And some of those blowouts were because their in-zone coverage was no good. I didn't like the decision after they got blown out in Washington heading to Pittsburgh. They skated them into the ice. And what happened on that Saturday night in Pittsburgh? They got wiped out. Why'd they get skated into the ice? Because the coach was ticked off at the team, and he was probably embarrassed. Well, that's not the way. You can't take stuff personal when you coach. And I will tell you right now, there's been a marked improvement in how this coach and this staff are running the bench and dealing with their players. And that's a real positive part of internal growth.
Now, I saw a message on the YouTube Live saying that everyone's bringing it right now but Slafkovsky. And you and I gave it to Slafkovsky after that game versus the Chicago Blackhawks. Pierre, I saw a better Uri Slafkovsky tonight. He wasn't perfect, but we talked about Marty St. Louis cutting down his bench in that game versus Colorado. And in the final 10 minutes, Slafkovsky sat on the bench and Jake Evans played with Suzuki and Caulfield. Did you see the way Slafkovsky started that game tonight? Because I know you did. That goal by Cole Caulfield goes from Suzuki to Slafkovsky with tremendous vision. First of all, he does a great job of protecting that puck along the boards. And secondly, he does a great job of seeing where Cole Caulfield is in the slot. And thirdly, he does a great job of passing him that puck with the right speed and the right dosage and whatever. And he passes it over, and Caulfield with the quick wrister scores a goal. That's a great play by Slafkovsky. That play alone, Slafkovsky was better than he has been in the last couple of weeks.
I agree. And I have it marked down. I usually don't write stuff down, but it goes Slafkovsky, and the first goal was outstanding. Board play to the slot, Caulfield, electrifying release. That's a really good play. I've been watching Toronto a lot, Tony, and I'm sure you have as well. If I'm Montreal right now, and this is just free advice, I'm getting tapes of Matthew Nyes. Before Matthew Nyes played with Marner and Matthews, and after he played with Marner and Matthews, and show Slafkovsky the difference. This is what it's like to play with star players when you're the third guy in the line. Slafkovsky's not better than Caulfield, and he's not better than Suzuki. He's a third guy in the line. Nyes isn't better than Marner, and he's not better than Matthews. He's a third guy in the line. Go watch how this guy plays. He's like a bull in a china shop. He's got 4 goals in his last 2 games. He's shredding the opposition defenseman. That's what Slafkovsky has to do. They got to turn him loose physically. They got to get his stick on the ice. He's got to forecheck with a vengeance. He's got to stop being the sorcerer with his stick in the air, trying to knock people off the puck with one hand on his stick. It'll come, but they got to start showing him. I think this guy's a huge visual learner. I don't think he's an audio learner. I think he's a visual learner. I really do.
Are the Montreal Canadiens going to make the playoffs? Well, you can get in on the action with Betway. Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and over. Please play responsibly. Pierre, by the way, I think we set a pretty good mark. The last time I think we had this amount of people on was the night that we went right after the NHL draft. I believe we had close to 2,500 or 3,000 people on. We got about 2,400 people watching us live right now on YouTube. I told Agnello about a month ago, I said, Agnello, if the Canadiens make the playoffs, we'll have 5,000 people watching us live on YouTube. And I feel pretty good about my prediction because we're not even at game 40 and there's 2,400 watching on YouTube. Yeah. So let's hope the Montreal Canadiens make the playoffs. We're going to open up the phone lines at 1-888-5856. That's 1-888-585-7425. It's a toll-free number. We're also going to get to your questions. You have a chance to talk to Pierre McGuire. You have a chance to ask questions to Pierre McGuire. In my opinion, the best Habs post-game show in the world, if I do say so myself. Sammy tells me right now that if we go to Facebook and we go to Twitter, we actually have 4,600 in total watching us live. And I hope for that number to be 46,000 one day instead of 4,600, but I'll take the 4,600 for now. Sammy, if you can, bring up some of the questions, bring up some of the phone calls. Pierre McGuire and I are ready. Mike says, Tony and Pierre, why do you think Slafkovsky is so reluctant to take more shots? He always finds himself in great spots, but always looks to pass first. What can the coaching staff do to make him selfish? Pierre, I'll answer this by asking you a question. Is it possible that Uri Slafkovsky is more of a passer than he is a shooter?
It is, but that's got to go away. I had a player like that named Jaromir Jagr when he was 18 and 19 years old. And one of the things is we would, after practice, spend a lot of time working on spinning out of the corner, being strong in the boards and getting pucks to the goal. And it wasn't about passing, it was about shooting. And then when I was done with him, Rick Keogh would take over, and Rick was a 50-goal scorer in the league, and work on his release point. And Yarby became a player that could score from 15 to 20 feet. When he first came in the league, he was scoring from 5 feet. It was a way different deal, but he was an amazing playmaker. So you can make him better, but it starts with what I told you before. Start showing him tapes. I really believe this kid's a visual learner, not an audio learner.
Before we get to Max, let's just bring up the Montreal Canadiens lineup tonight, and it goes as follows. Nick Suzuki, centering Slafkovsky and Caulfield. Doc centering Pizzetta and Newhook. Dvorak centering Gallagher and Anderson. Evans with Armia and Heineman. On defense, Hutson and Matheson, Gooley and Carrier, Jackeye and Struble. In goal, Samuel Montembeault. If we take a look at the game stats, if we take a look at the scoring in this hockey game, it was 1 minute and 7 seconds into the game. It was Cole Caulfield. It was assisted by Suzuki and Slafkovsky. Once again, Slafkovsky finds Caulfield in the slot, and he makes it 1-0 for the Montreal Canadiens. About 10 and a half minutes later, Quinn Hughes dumps it in. Höglander gets to it before Hutson, and he passes to JT Miller with a one-timer slapper. He ties it at 1. In the second period, 3:21 into period number 2. And I have it here. It's Myers who banks it off the boards. The bounce goes right in behind Carrier. It goes to Lekeri Mackey, who tries to beat Montembeault 5-hole. The rebound comes out as he makes the save. And JT Miller's able to backhand it in because Gooley tried to pick up Lekeri Mackey, who was Carrier's guy, and it left JT Miller all alone. 20 seconds after that, it's a JT Miller to Besser, and Carrier steps up into him. All of a sudden, the puck goes behind him, and it goes to Lekeri Mackey, who's on a 2-on-1, and his quick wrister beats Montembeault short side, and the Canucks are up by a score of 3-1. About 7 minutes later, Armia gets it to Carrier, who passes it to Gooley with a short pass. He's at the point. He shoots a puck through traffic with Jake Evans screening, and the Canadiens are able to narrow that lead to 3-2. On to period number 3 we go. 2 minutes and 1 second in. The Canadiens are on a power play. Suzuki to Hutson. Hutson jumps into the play, takes a shot, save, rebound comes out. Doc spins and turns, goes to shoot it, and it deflects off of Tyler Myers' stick, and it goes in. The Canadiens tie it up. Lane Hutson jumps into the play as he always does at 6:54. He passes it in front of the crease. It goes off of Quinn Hughes' right skate. The Canadiens go up by a score of 4-3. Caulfield takes that penalty that Pierre McGuire talked about that he didn't like on the power play from JT Miller to Quinn Hughes to Jake DeBrusk, and he ties it at 4. And then Höglander picks up an interference penalty on Josh Anderson at 19:24 of period number 3. The game goes to overtime. Marty St. Louis says Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Kirby Doc, Lane Hutson, you go on the ice. Caulfield to Hutson, finds Suzuki, quick wrister short side. Rick Tocchet says, you know what? I think Doc interfered with my goalie and may have hit his glove. But my goalie was outside of his crease, and he didn't hit him that much. But if I'm going to lose the game anyway, I might as well challenge. And he challenges, and the referees say, good goal, and the Canadiens win, and the Canadiens are in a wild card spot. Let's go to Max on line 1. Max, welcome to the Habs Post Game on the Sick Podcast. You're with Pierre McGuire.
Well, hello, fellas. First of all, let me just say, what a game. What a game. The Habs fans have been eating good these last couple of weeks. It's been a lot of fun. And listen, I'm going to shoot you a really quick one just because I want other people behind me to get their turn. But I'm going to take the opportunity to have Mr. McGuire weighing on our little discourse here at the guys that were watching the game. Everyone's talking about Lane Hutson. He's amazing. He's so much fun. He always has a smile on his face. What a kid. If tomorrow, we're redoing that draft, where does he come out?
Oh, he'd be a first-round pick. He'd probably be a top 10 pick. But he'd definitely be a first-round pick. He wouldn't be a second-round pick.
Do you think, because that was the hot topic here, do you think what really held him back was his size most of all?
100%. I mean, if you look at his numbers with the U.S. National Team Development Program, you look at his numbers his freshman year at Boston University, he had 50 points. I mean, I saw Brian Leach play in college at Boston College. I saw Paul Correa play up at the University of Maine. I've seen Jack Eichel play at BU. I've seen a lot of great college players. Joe Newendijk play at Cornell. Like guys that were elite. They're in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Eichel's not there yet. We'll see whether he can or not. But I can just tell you right now, Lane Hutson, what he did at BU his freshman year, the only knock on him was his size. That was it. Everything else was super elite. That was it.
I'm going to tell you something else. His brother was drafted in the second round, 43rd overall by the Washington Capitals. I mean, if the World Junior Tournament's any indication, Pierre, he's a top 10, top 15 pick himself.
In last summer's draft, absolutely. And the only knock on him, again, to Max's point, is just size. That's it.
Man, is he good.
Yep.
He could have easily won the MVP of the World Juniors. I mean, I have no problem with Ryan Leonard winning it.
Yep.
But he could have won it too, right, Pierre?
100%. I hate the time. My son was in the Washington Capitals camp last summer, and Cole was there. And, my son's a pretty hard marker. He said, Dad, that kid's really good. And he, he would tell me, he tells me the guys he thinks are good that aren't.
Yeah.
And he says, Cole's really good.
You want to know a player that's good? You talk to a player that's going up against them in practice, and they'll give you the scoop on that. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much for the phone call. We'll continue to get to your calls. Go to sickattire.com to shop your favorite Sick podcast with Tony Marinaro merchandise, and we thank you very much for that. Steve is online too. Steve, welcome to the Habs post game right here on the Sick podcast. What's going on?
Thanks, Tony. Hi, Pierre.
Hi, Steve.
Two quick points. Heineman is one of the best passers on the team. Every game, he plays so few minutes, and he lays out good passes every time he's on the ice. He hits. This guy gets me more excited. We know about Lane Hutson and all the obvious things, but I think this guy's got a chance to be something good. Maybe when he pumps up his minutes, he won't be as effective, but I don't see that. I see him as someone who's got a real chance to be a serious guy on the team. Number 2 point, someone better sit down with Cole Caulfield and tell him to grow up. That penalty, that is the most ridiculous penalty I've ever seen a top-flight player play in a third period of a tie game. I've never seen anything like that. The guy's like a 2-year-old. He has to look at Lane Hutson, the way Lane Hutson reacts when he scores a goal. He needs to grow up. I don't care how good a goal scorer he is. You can't do that in hockey.
Well, Steve, we agree. I said that right off the top to Tony. I didn't like that penalty at all. You and I are on the same page. That's a teachable moment. They'll celebrate the win tonight, and tomorrow I'm sure he'll be in the tape room with the coach, and I'll be saying, dude, you can't do that. You want to be a top guy in this team. You want to be a respected player in the league. You can't do that, because once you start doing that stuff, I can tell you right now, the league office marks it down. The referees are aware of it, and then you start to get a reputation. He can't get that kind of a reputation if he's going to be a top-end player for the Canadiens. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. And the reason why I brought it up is that you can do it once. He did it 3 or 4 games ago. I mean, that's the second time he's done it in a key spot in the third period. He cost us the game in Columbus.
Yeah.
I really hope they work on that, because I don't want to be negative, because the game they're playing great.
Yeah.
They're the most excited I've been about this team. I've been watching them since the late 50s.
And Caulfield's playing great, by the way. Caulfield's playing great as well.
He is.
No, Caulfield's playing great, but you still can't do. I don't care how good you're playing.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
We agree.
All right.
Anyway, listen, I like what you said about Hutson, because you're like, not only is he playing good, Pierre, the humility it blows me away.
I watched him so much. Like Jay Pandolfo's a friend of mine, the coach at BU, and he I go watch practice from time to time, and especially last year when Hutson was the first 2 year Hutson was there. I'm talking about Lane, not Cole, and Tony. I'm just telling you, like, this guy's a workaholic. He just loves being at the rink. I don't know how much he went to school, but I can tell you one thing. If school classes are being at the rink and being in the dressing room, being in the weight room, that kid did really well in school, because he was there a lot. And I'll just tell you, like, he busted his butt to get to where he is now, and he's just going to keep getting better and better all the time. You're right. And the way he does it with a certain panache. There's a certain style to him that people really appreciate. They really do.
Canadians will practice for the next 3 days. Who knows? Maybe they might have a day off tomorrow, but they will visit the Capitals in Washington on Friday night and then host the Dallas Stars. So another back-to-back with travel going to Washington, travel coming back to host Dallas on Friday and Saturday for the Montreal Canadiens. James is on line 3. James, The Montreal Canadiens win 5-4 in overtime on a goal by captain Nick Suzuki. And guess what? They're in the second wild card spot. James, do you believe?
I do believe. Are you kidding me?
Well, I'm not kidding you. I'm just asking a question. I believe you when you tell me that you do believe. What can I tell you?
Hey, Tony, hi, Pierre. Tony,
James.
listen, just please don't apologize to Marty. You know, maybe you're part of the reason why he's building so much character. So please don't apologize.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't think I woke up Marty, or I don't think I made Marty a better coach, but I appreciate you kind of alluding to something positive happening, stemming from my criticism. But listen, I think the criticism at the time was warranted. Like, I think the praise right now is warranted. And that's the way it is. Like, if we can praise Lane Hutson after a great game, and we can knock Kirby Dach, for example, after a bad game, or praise Lane Hutson after a great game and knock Lane Hutson after a bad game, why can't we do the same with Marty?
100%. And, you know, I think it's one of those things that in media today, dude, we're too nice. We're a little bit too nice, you know? Like, can we just get, like, some real, and you have the realness to you, Tony. Please don't change. I wanted to bring something up that might not be as popular as everyone else. I think Montembeault has evolved in maturity in recent weeks. And what I mean by that is, I think, was it against Vegas the other night? I felt he didn't have a strong game, but he made the clutch saves at the right moments. And that is a sign to me that it's a mature goalie in the net. And again tonight, like, not, you know, he wasn't stealing the game. He wasn't incredible, but he made the key saves at the key moments. And
but
these are
James,
things that he wasn't doing before.
Look, good point, but it's also a sign to me that he recognizes that he's being pushed here. Pierre, he's being pushed.
There's a couple things. He's being pushed, number one, because he knows Dobish is good. He knows Jacob Fowler's on the way. And he also knows he's got an unbelievable opportunity with the dress rehearsal with Team Canada to maybe be on the Olympic team. So there's a lot of stuff pushing him right now internally. So I think he's just going to keep getting better and better. And he is, look, at every goal, he's different. You know, some guys thrive when they're not getting a lot of shots. Ken Dryden was one of those guys. Other guys, when they get not that many shots, they're not as good. Look at Curtis Joseph when he went to Detroit. So in this case, I think they're figuring out, the goalies here, figuring out where they kind of are and how they need to play. Key saves at key times with this team are really important. We saw that tonight with Montembeault. We saw it we saw it a ton in Colorado with Dobish, and we saw it in Vegas with Montembeault. So
Pierre, the last time the Canadiens played a back-to-back, which was Friday, Saturday, Montembeault played one, Dobish played one. The time before that they played a back-to-back, Florida and Tampa Bay, Dobish played one and Montembeault played one. I guess you fully expect Dobish to play one of the two games on Friday or Saturday. My question to you, he hasn't played a game at the Bell Center yet. Which one do you think he's going to get, Pierre?
If I were betting, I'd say they're going to ask Montembeault tomorrow how he feels, and then I'm going to say they're probably going to say we're going to go with Dobish on Friday, and we're going to go with Montembeault on Saturday at home.
I would agree with that. Let's go to Don on line 4. Don, thanks for calling the Habs post-game show. It's a sick podcast. You're on with Pierre McGuire. What's on your mind?
Tony, voice of a fan. I swear you and I share a brain when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens. And I wonder if you're feeling the same way I do here. When it comes to these Habs right now, I only see one way to make an upgrade where I wouldn't be afraid to mess up chemistry, and that's in the top 6. So I wonder, between you and Pierre, when you'd make a move to add a top 6 player. And I think you got to do it sooner than later, because an injury, I think it's not razor thin for our team. An injury could put us out of the playoffs, and a top 6 player could send us on a run.
Pierre, I know that Slafkovsky was fantastic in the second half of the season last year, put up really big numbers for a 19-year-old, 20 goals, 30 assists, 50 points. By the way, 2 players under 20 years old in the history of the Montreal Canadiens to pick up 20-plus goals and 50-plus points in their second season, the late Guy Lafleur, my childhood hero, and Juraj Slafkovsky. That's something special. But players have ups and downs all the times. And like you've said before, he's still a young player and there's going to continue to be more ups and downs. A lot of people think that Slafkovsky can only play with Caulfield and Suzuki right now at this stage of his career. What if they went to get a player that they can put on the first line, or take a second line player like Alini, for example, put him on the first line when he comes back, get another player to put on the second line, and put Slafkovsky down on the third line? Now, all of a sudden, he's going up against other teams' third lines and probably a second pair defense instead of going up against other teams' first lines or first pairing defense. You think it could help him out?
It could help him a little bit, but here's what I would say to Don's point. I would look at anything right now, because I think you can establish marketplace rather than have the marketplace establish what you have to pay. So I wouldn't mess with the infrastructure of the team, but I would definitely be proactive, and I'm sure they are, proactively looking for another forward that has skill. I think they got more than enough grit, especially because of what Josh Anderson has done with his career. And the point that I think it was Steve that called before about Heineman, I thought he was spot on. I really did. I thought that was a really good point about Heineman. He's like found money. Armia's playing for a contract, so he's an urgent player. You know what I mean, Tony? There's a lot. The lower part of the roster is pretty set. I'm not sure I'd mess with Slafkovsky's brain right now. I think I just want him comfortable playing, but I also want him to understand what he needs to do to be successful. And until he starts initiating more physical contact, he's only going to be a shell of himself. He could be a really special player.
I think there's a need for the Montreal Canadiens to be able to add another Alex Carrier type of defenseman.
That'd be good too. Nothing wrong with that. The one thing I'd say is I think it's important, and I know fans don't care because they're only about the Canadiens, but you were wearing a hat before, a toque from the Rocket, and they matter. They matter long term, and they need to go on a run here. They need to get that team into the playoffs. I think they're in third in their division right now. They need to get that team in the playoffs. They need to go on a run. They need to win at least a round or maybe two to get those guys some experience so that next year when camp comes, a guy like Luke Tuck or a guy like Florian Jacki or a guy like Owen Beck, they can make a difference because you're going to lose some guys. And you need to have those guys filtering through. So I wouldn't be messing around too much with guys right now, but I think there is the potential to add a top six forward, and I think you could also add a defenseman.
Let's go to Gilles on line 5. Gilles, welcome to the Habs Post Game. It's a Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro. You're on with Pierre McGuire.
Oh, hi, Tony. Hi, Pierre. I love the show. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gilles.
I want to talk about the Ottawa Senators. I'm a diehard Habs fan, but I go see live games, and there's the perspective you get when you see live games that you just don't get on TV. And I'm looking at Brady Tkachuk, and I look at his body language sometimes on the ice, and I find that the guys, like there's one play where he stays next to the goaler. Everybody, the whole play has gone back to the offense side, and he's not even coming back. I just couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that on the ice. And I know there's rumors going around with Brady Tkachuk that he's not really happy in Ottawa. I've been following the Canadiens since since 1974, and I haven't been able to fall in love with the Ottawa Senators yet. And the Montreal will always be my first team, but they're not doing anything to get the Ottawa or the Gatineau people to really get on board with the Senators. Would you do a trade, Pierre? One-on-one Brady Tkachuk for Lafreniere?
If I were Ottawa?
No.
Yes.
No, I wouldn't do that. No, I would not. I worked with Brady. No, I would not. Brady's got a lot of stuff going on. I think here, let me put it to you this way, Gilles. If they had drafted Brady Tkachuk in Montreal instead of Kotkaniemi, do you think the Canadiens would be a better team?
Of course.
Yeah. So I know Brady's game pretty well, and I would not do that deal. No, I would not do that.
So, Gilles, you can call anytime, but do me a favor. The next time you call, Talk to me about the Montreal Canadiens. Who cares about the Ottawa Senators? And besides, Pierre McGuire doesn't work for them anymore. If he did, I can give Ottawa a little bit of airtime here. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Accent Insurance Solutions. You know, all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money. Whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business, call 514-363-3636 or visit their website, www.accentassurance.com. Pierre, I will finish though on Ottawa, and it's just a gut feel. I have no intel on this whatsoever, and I'm sure you have a heck of a lot more than I do. It's just a gut feeling once again. I don't think Brady Tkachuk finish his career with the Ottawa Senators. I don't know. Like, I would keep that guy, and he would be with me from start to finish. But if they don't start making the playoffs, I mean, that guy was born to play playoff hockey, and he's never played it. I don't think he's going to want to be there very much longer if they're not going to be able to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because they do have the talent to get in there. You know, it comes down to how healthy will Linus Ullmark be. What are they going to do on the right side of their defense? And I think the biggest thing is just making sure most of their guys stay healthy. I think Travis Green has coached really well there. I do. I think his staff has done a good job. But they got to find a way to get in. They really do. I'm with you on that.
I hope they find a way to blow it and the Canadiens get in. Let's go to Alex. Alex, welcome to the Habs postgame. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Hi, Tony. Hi, Pierre. Hope you guys are fired up for the Habs like we all are. Have a couple topics of conversation tonight. First thing with Pezzetta. I think obviously there's no question he gives it his all in his 4 or so minutes that he's given each night. He really did stay on the sidelines and obviously put in the work in practice and was very patient and whatnot. What's the logic, in your opinion, to keep Pezzetta and give him these 4 or so minutes and then have a bunch of other people shuffle in versus calling someone like a Joshua Roy up from Laval and have him play some meaningful minutes on a second line, on a skilled line where maybe he really continue to develop?
If you don't mind, I'd like to answer that before we get to Pierre. My answer, based on the little experience that I have, is that, and by the way, I would have loved to have seen Pezzetta get more than the 3 minutes and 58 seconds that he got tonight because, quite frankly, I think it's pretty embarrassing, which is unfortunate. Having said that, I think Pezzetta, for a guy who doesn't get in because the Canadiens like their 12, it's not really going to hurt his development because I think he's as close to his ceiling as possible if he hasn't hit it already. Joshua Roy, to be here, to not have the full confidence of the coach and not play a lot of minutes will hurt his development. I think Pierre McGuire would agree that Joshua Roy has to play big minutes and play a big role in Laval and contribute to their successes before coming to Montreal and having limited minutes and not playing a big role. So that's my way of answering it. Pierre?
I don't have to say anything more. We didn't rehearse the answer, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's a player that needs to touch the puck a lot. That's a player that needs to be on the power play a lot. That's a player that needs to dominate in the American Hockey League. And once he starts to really dominate, he's going to get his opportunity. Long-term, Michael Pezzetta is not going to be part of the answer for the Montreal Canadiens. Joshua Roy is going to have that chance, but it's better for him to be developing and playing tons of minutes.
Thank you so much for the phone call, Alex. 1-888-585-7425, 1-888-585-SICK. It's a toll-free number. Give us a call. Agnello and Sammy and Master Control say we're going to Corey. Corey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good.
I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, from Prince Edward Island. Kind of got a craving for chicken crates here, and Pierre talked about Merchantman Paul PEI the other night. But I think there'll be a big difference in Montreal next year when Demidov gets there. I've watched all I could of him in his highlights, and him with Doc and Laine in the same line, I think that'll make a big difference for Doc too. He gets 2 star wingers on either side of him like that. That could be one dynamic line right there.
It's a great point, Corey, and I agree with you 100%. But again, I can tell you this. It's going to be a major jump for Demidov coming from Russia and the KHL to play in the NHL on an everyday basis. You heard all the flattery stuff about Mishkov and how great he was going to be, and he started out unbelievable. You watched the game last night, Toronto versus Philly. He was non-existent. Like, he's hit the wall, and John Tortorella knows that. And so tomorrow's going to be interesting to see if he even suits up for Philadelphia. I don't know if he will or won't, but there's a big learning curve. It's hard for young guys to just be superstars in this league. So as great as he's going to be, Demidov, there's still going to be growing pains. He's going to have to do some heavy lifting.
Meats got points for a fraction with Demidov there this year, though, aren't they?
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said Meats got points last year in Russia in the KHL or a fraction of what Demidov there.
No, fair point. Yeah, fair point. But I'm just telling you, there's a learning curve, Corey. There is. It's a way different league. First of all, the transition from small ice to big ice to small ice. There's a big difference. You'll see.
I agree with you, and I expect that. But just the way he can just dazzle with his moves in front of the net is amazing to me.
I agree. Agree with all that. I agree with all of it.
Thanks for taking my call, sir.
Appreciate taking the time.
Thanks, Corey.
Pierre, my colleague at TVA Sport, Renaud Lavoie, reports that the Canadiens have started negotiations with Jake Evans, who's in the final year of his contract. Jake Evans tonight, Pierre, won 10 of 11 faceoffs.
Over 90%. I know
91%. I don't remember what was the last time a Montreal Canadien took at least 10 faceoffs and finished with 91% in the circle. Pierre, if they've started negotiations with him, I think it's safe to say that they believe he can be part of the solution going forward. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, he's part of the solution. He's not part of the problem. And I also think he feels really comfortable with the solution they've created for him, the position that they've created for him to live up to. I think he's really a happy kid. You see the way he plays. And Tony, you made the great point about the game in Colorado when they decided, you know what, Slaf doesn't have it right now. We're going to move him up and we're going to play him with Caulfield. We're going to play him with Suzuki. It was great bench management, but it shows you how malleable he is as a player. But here's the one thing I look for, and I haven't talked to Jeff Gorton about it. I haven't talked to Ken Hughes about it. I think he'll get more years, and I think he'll get less money. I think that's how they'll do it. I think that'll be the trade-off.
Anywhere between 3 and 3.5 at 4 years?
I think it might start around 2.75 and go to 3.5, but it'd probably be 4 years.
That's a good. I'll take that contract.
Yeah, I think he would too.
Yeah, 2.75 first year, 3 second, 3.25 third year, 3.5 fourth year. I'll take that contract.
I don't see why that would be an issue, and I could see that's what they would try to do. That's how I would try to present it.
Let's go back to the phone lines at 1-888-585-7425. Let's go to Dale. Hello, Dale.
How are you guys tonight?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Fine like frog's hair.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a problem with the goaltending on this team. Like Monty, I'm just not sold on Monty, right?
Okay.
Kind of reminds me of the Hackett years and the QA years, you know what I mean? Like they have great games at times and then they drop the ball, right? I'm just wondering if we should be out actively looking for a goaltender or how long is Fowler going to be?
Samuel Montembeau's on a 3-year deal at $3.5 million per season. I think he's a top 20 goalie in the National Hockey League. What more do you want than that?
Well,
you want to talk?
I'm talking with Dobish. I'm talking like Roland Melanson. Remember the first few games he come in, we shot the lights out, and then just faded away. I'm just wondering. Like I watch games. I've been watching since '73. Lafleur's my favorite all time. And,
okay, but pardon me for a second, if I can, just to clear it up here. Are you questioning Montembeau or are you questioning Dobish?
No, I'm not questioning Dobish. He's done it, come up and done a great job. But I don't think
small sample size, though, only 2 games, but I agree with you. It's very positive and very encouraging. Samuel Montembeau was on waivers like 3.5 to 4 years ago. There's a lot of people who didn't think he was an NHL goalie, and yours truly, Tony Marinaro, was one of them. This guy's character has blown me away. I'm very impressed. He's a gamer. He's a great team guy. He's a competitor. He keeps on getting better, and he's tremendous value at $3.5 million per season, $3.15 million per season for the next 3 years. He's going to be representing Canada at the Four Nations tourney. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins that battle. He's represented Canada before. Pierre McGuire talked about him having a legitimate chance of representing Canada at the Olympics. You want to have a top 5 goalie in the National Hockey League, you're going to have to pay him $8+ million. You got one who's a top 15, top 20. He's making 3.15. I'll take that.
Hey, I've been spoiled with Theodore and Waugh.
It's true.
Right. You know,
It's true.
He's got teams behind him, right? And Pierre, I was hoping for you against Bergevin there.
You're very kind. So was I.
Yeah. And you're both looking good. The hair's looking good, Tony.
That's great, Dale. Thanks.
There was probably a couple of million reasons why Pierre was open.
No, it had nothing to do with money. You know what it had to do with?
I know.
Childhood dream, man.
Yeah, I hear you, Pierre. Yeah, I hear you. I was just kidding.
I know.
With that, but you were, I know how much the Montreal Canadiens mean to you.
Yeah,
for sure. I think everyone does, right?
Yep.
And Kent Hughes is living it right now, right? I would imagine it was a childhood dream for Kent Hughes too, from the West Island, to one day work for the Montreal Canadiens. And he said it when he got the job. He said there are probably 2 teams in the National Hockey League that he would, or 1 team or 2 teams that he would have said yes to and stopped the agency business that he was a partner in. And the Montreal Canadiens were obviously one of them. The Canadiens are a different animal, right, Pierre?
Oh, it's a massive brand. And when, I hear everybody saying my first game was 73, my first game was 65 at Old Madison Square Garden with my grandfather. And I saw the Montreal Canadiens play the New York Rangers. And I was hooked. And I've been hooked ever since, and it's special. They're a special organization. And you and I grew up, watching them win cup after cup after cup. And then I get a chance to, be roommates and win Stanley Cups with the former coach of the Montreal Canadiens, Scotty Bowman. I mean, as a kid growing up in Montreal, that's probably as good as it gets.
By the way, seeing as we're talking about the history of the Montreal Canadiens, Pierre,
Al McNeil
won the Stanley Cup with the Montreal Canadiens in 1971. When a lot of people talk about the Montreal Canadiens, right, probably their greatest memory is 1971, knocking off the powerful Boston Bruins the way they did in Game 7. And in Game 5, I think they trailed by a score of 5-1 in the second period.
Jean Beliveau saved them
by a score of 7-5. You're absolutely right. They end up winning the Stanley Cup that year by beating the Chicago Blackhawks in Chicago, Game 7, by a score of 3-2 on 2 goals by Henry Richard and 1 goal by Jacques Lemaire. It was announced earlier today that Al McNeil passed away at the age of 89. Yep. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the McNeil family and his family and friends, of course. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go to one more call, Pierre? One more call.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Are we going to Aldo? Aldo, you there? Go ahead, Aldo. Aldo, you there? Go ahead. It looks like we have a communication problem with Aldo, and it looks like we just lost him. So seeing as we promised one more call, let's open up the phone lines right now at 1-888-585-7425, and we'll take one more call, and then we'll call it a night. We'll be back tomorrow night, by the way, same time, same place. And joining me tomorrow night will be Eric Engels of Sportsnet, sportsnet.ca. Eric, usually a regular on Monday nights, but seeing as he worked the Canadiens game tonight for Sportsnet, Eric will join me tomorrow. Sean, welcome to the Habs postgame on the Sick Podcast. What's on your mind, Sean?
Hey, Tony, how you doing? Love the show. I always love when Pierre's on. I was just calling. I was very impressed today with Caden Gooley, especially the first half. Yeah. I just wanted your take on it. I thought he set a great tone with that big hit in the first minute, and then the goal, obviously, I thought he had a huge game.
He did, and you know what's been really cool about watching Caden Gooley? Ever since they got Alex Carrier, Caden Gooley's taken his game up another notch. He's moved from the right side to the left side. He looks way more comfortable over there. He's stepping up. That hit on Lekkerimäki was a spectacular hit. That wasn't the only good one he had. I think Caden Gooley's starting to find his niche with the Montreal Canadiens. That's a great tandem. It's made their team better, and I couldn't agree with you more, Sean.
Yeah, I thought he was huge. I've kind of followed his career from here in Edmonton, watching the game tonight with my son. He's 11. I'm turning him into one of the next generations of Canadiens fans.
Cool. That's good.
One of the first kind of game he went to here in Edmonton was an Oil Kings game. He's got a jersey and a hat with Caden Gooley's signature on it. So we've always been big fans. And yeah, if you don't mind, my son would love to say hi. He's standing here beside me. He's pulling my arm.
Do it.
Sure.
Go for it.
Hi. Yeah, this is his son. I just want to say I love the Montreal Canadiens, and yeah, go Habs.
What's your name?
My name's Jagger.
Good to talk with you. Thanks for your passion.
Do you have a Canadiens jersey at home? Do you have a Canadiens jersey?
Yes, I do.
Oh, really? And who's on the back of that jersey?
Cole Caulfield.
Oh, that's a pretty good player. Good for you. You know what? You're up pretty late. I would imagine you have school tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I did.
But you wanted to stay up to watch the hockey game and stay up and watch the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Good for you. I used to do the same thing when I was around your age and listen to sports radio in Montreal with the late, great Ted Stevens, so I can understand where you're coming from. Good for you. All right. Have a great night. Go Habs, go. All right.
Good night, Tom.
Pierre, I'm going to say this. We're going to, that's it for the calls, I think, but we're going to get the 5 questions. Now, I'm going to surprise you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because guess who's going to ask question number 1? You're never going to guess.
You.
That's right. You did guess. All right. So seeing as the gentleman called and said, Pierre, I wish you would have been the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. I was pulling for you over Marc Bergevin. I got my question for you. You ready? Put you on the spot here.
Yeah.
Would you have traded PK Subban for Shea Weber?
No.
You want to say why?
No. I would not have.
So you don't have to say, because I guess probably Shea Weber had already played his best hockey and was probably.
I will say this: I'm friends with Shea, and I'm friends with PK too. But I was really concerned about Shea's injury situations, and there was more than one. And I got to know Shea really well when he was playing for the Kelowna Rockets. I used to go out and run their practices when Mark Habscheid was a coach there. So got to know him really well, got to know Duncan Keith really well, guys that were part of that team. Blake Como was another player on that team. So I had the privilege of working with him, and I was blown away by how hard he could shoot the puck, and I was blown away by how many minutes he could log. But I did a lot of Nashville games too when I was on TV, and you could see Father Time wasn't being friendly to Shea. And a big reason why were the injuries. And the way he gutted it out in Montreal, to me, was unbelievable. He deserves so much credit. Really. True gentleman, awesome person. I was there for his induction at the Hall of Fame, and think the world of him, but I would not have done that deal, no.
And I would imagine that a part of it had to do as well with PK really wanted to be a Montreal Canadian, was really happy to be a Montreal Canadian, right?
That doesn't matter. That part wouldn't have mattered to me. It's whether the player could help the team on the ice or not, and I still thought there was room for growth. I think there had to be a different type of messaging with him, and I think you could have done that, and there wouldn't have been as much animosity at the end as there was.
Perfect. Let's go to the questions now. I asked mine. You have a chance to ask yours. Joe Cowan, who sends over $5. We have potentially 4 rookies coming next season: Demidov, Beck, Reinbacher, and Mayu. Can this team absorb that many rookies and not regress? That's a great question, Pierre.
Very good question. I don't know the answer to that except for this one. I don't know what Reinbacher's health situation is going to be. I think Demidov's going to be an everyday player, but you're going to have to expect peaks and valleys with a kid that's that young. Owen Beck, a lot's going to come down in the second half in the American Hockey League and also the playoffs, whether you're going to see him be an everyday player or not in the NHL. I think he's going to be, but we'll see how that plays out. Mayu, I can tell you this right now. I got a bunch of real good friends that coach in the American Hockey League, and one of them said to me the other day, "Get him out of the league. He's too good. He's too good to be playing here." Yeah, yeah. And
somebody wrote on Twitter earlier today, can't believe so many teams passed up on Zibayum, who obviously was a very good defenseman for.
Yeah, I've watched him for so long, Tony. He's so good, and his composure with the puck. That play that he made to Teddy Stiga last night, for
that saucer pass, beautiful.
That's elite. That's something that Patrick Kane would do. And he's a defenseman.
Yes,
so He's going right to Minnesota when the season's over. It's like Ryan Leonard's going right to Washington. Gabe Perreault's going right to New York. That American team was chock full of superstar players. I mean, that's just how it is.
Looks like they got themselves a superstar coach too, Pierre?
Yeah, Carl's really good. David's a real good coach. I've seen him obviously a lot this year because my son plays against their team. He's really good. He's very structured. He communicates well. I think he's going to be in the NHL. I was surprised he didn't go last year, but I think he wanted the opportunity to try to win a second World Junior, and he's done that.
35 years old, a couple of World Juniors, a couple of NCAA championships with the University of Denver. It's a pretty nice CV he's carved out for himself, huh?
Yeah, the guy that was there before him is a guy named Jim Montgomery.
Wow, pretty cool.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty cool. All right, okay, let's so anyway, I was saying, somebody wrote that on Twitter today saying, I can't believe so many teams passed up on him. And Tony DeAngelo, who plays in the KHL and is a teammate of Ivan Demidov, said, I guess this guy hasn't seen Demidov play yet because
you know, I really liked – I know Tony's got a different kind of thing going on. I've never had a bad conversation with Tony DeAngelo. I've never had a bad interview with him. I've never had a bad visit with the kid. I love his intensity. I love how hard he pushes, you know, his teammates to be better. I love how hard he is on himself. I know politically he does some different stuff. I just talk about the hockey player. I don't worry about the political stuff.
Yeah.
That's not my job. My job's to talk about hockey.
Yeah, I hear you, Pierre. Good for you. All right, another question. Dan says, question for you both. Will Lane Hutson be the highest paid player on the Habs? And how much do you think he gets after his entry-level contract if he continues playing so well? So I do not think he'll be the highest paid player on the Habs, but I do think that he's going to be in that conversation. It'll be interesting to see if he'll be the highest paid defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens, because Caden Gooley makes $5.5 million a year. And there I'll say, I believe he will be.
I think they'll start by using Adam Fox's contract. I think they'll start by looking at Quinn Hughes' contract. I don't think they can look at McCarr's contract. It's just not the right comparable because of the size issue. But there are a lot of comparables you can use for Lane that I think will be fair for the player and fair for the team coming out of entry level.
He will not make what PK Subban made.
No, I don't.
8 years, $72 million.
Yeah, I don't believe so. No.
One more.
I don't believe so.
This will be the last one. Splitgate Vids. Pierre, how do we keep Heineman? He's too good to be bottom six, but there's no light at the end of the tunnel for him to crack the top six. What do you tell him to make sure he doesn't sign elsewhere?
I don't know about that not being able to crack the top six. I mean, and this is nothing against Newhook, but I'm looking at him going, okay, maybe a move up. Being part of a really good team in a hockey market like this, ask Patrick Laine. Patrick Laine started in Winnipeg, went to Columbus, is in Montreal, and what did he say after his first game? I've never experienced anything like this. I think Heineman's probably feeling the same thing. You can keep players. There's ways of keeping players. I mean, I won't even begin to tell you all the great players we had in Pittsburgh. We couldn't have had that team if there was a salary cap. Guys wanted to stay because they wanted to be part of something special.
Listen, for me, it's very easy. He's in year 3 of a 3-year deal that pays him $898,000 a year. He's an RFA at the end of the season. They're going to double his salary, and he's going to sign another 3-year deal. That's it.
It's not. I don't think that's that hard a negotiation. I really don't.
Not at all.
And he's not getting an RFA deal somewhere else.
Pierre, it's not hard working with you either. What a night. The Montreal Canadiens win a thriller in overtime by a score of 5-4. And for the first time in several years, the Canadiens tonight are in a wild card spot in the East for a playoff spot. It's pretty cool. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. Thank you, Pierre McGuire.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Thanks to all the listeners. Thanks to all the viewers. And thanks for all the questions. Really appreciate it.
And special thanks to all of our sponsors. Energy Transportation Group is one. Playground is another. Tibi is another. Betway is another. Accent Insurance Solutions is another. And once again, the Maguire Report was brought to you by Restaurant Vago on Green Avenue, corner of the Maisonneuve in Westmount. Go see Tommaso and Angelo. And guys, thank you so much for bringing me Pierre McGuire after every Montreal Canadiens weeknight game. And special thanks to all of you who watched tonight in big numbers on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live, and on Twitter Live. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love The Canadiens are in a wild card spot tonight. They're in the mix. They're in the mix. Have a good night, everyone.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBeat.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.